Hello, everybody. I'm here with Carl Orsbourn, our new COO. Well, maybe not so new, but at least officially announced. Carl, I can't say enough how thrilled we are to have you as part of the team. And now that we've announced it to the world, even more so, I'm sure everybody is excited about the news. And so maybe you could just take a few minutes and talk about why, after writing your book, you decided to join Juicer. After all, I think you could have done pretty much anything you wanted in the industry.
Well, thanks, Ashwin. It's great to be able to be here. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. It's a great privilege, quite honestly, to join Juicer, not only because of the team that you've assembled already and the co-founders that we've got, Ashwin. I mean, accomplished entrepreneurs that have had exits, experienced folks that know about this world of dynamic pricing, know about the way in which it helps an industry such as hospitality, travel, and hotels, airlines, of course. And when you and I first met, you were talking to me, you were interested in the book, and you said, I'm starting this company in the dynamic pricing space. You really piqued my interest very, very early on. And that's largely because, of course, I've got a background in gasoline pricing. I did that about 10 years or so ago in the UK and saw the way in which very subtle changes can make a demonstrable difference to the bottom line of a gas company in that example. And the thing that everyone has been dealing with for certainly the last few decades, but even more recently in the off-premise space, is the fact that we're talking about a particular channel that is struggling with margins, right? It's the fees, whether the fees from third parties, whether you're talking about just the extra expenses you need to have to be able to adopt different technology platforms into a restaurant's infrastructure. And what we're bringing, I think, at Juicer and what dynamic pricing is going to be able to bring is not only top line improvements, but also bottom line margin improvements. And I think that is a really much needed, support for restaurants across the space. And yes, I know we're initially focusing on off premise, but I think this is going to have an opportunity to support restaurants across all channels, catering, on premise, off premise, drive through, curbside. Anything is really up for grabs here, and it's an exciting time. So I appreciate you allowing me to join up with the team. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, look, as you know, and as the fourth and final co-founder of this business, the three of us prior to your joining were really focused on the hotel industry before we started this company. So my experience was working with a large hotel chain and then starting a business in the e-commerce world of the hotels. And of course, Drew Patterson, one of the founding team members of Kayak and other very successful ventures in travel and hospitality. And of course, Marco Benvenuti, who was the co-founder of Duetto and was really the brains behind all the dynamic pricing algorithms at that company. I think we received a very warm welcome from the restaurant industry, knowing that we have done this before in a previous industry. But I think you now coming into this company and really rounding out the team with all of your knowledge and expertise that you've now gained in the restaurant space, not only from an operations perspective, but knowing the landscape of the different technology providers, all of the struggles that restaurants have been living day in, day out over the last 2 years, and what they should be expecting in the future. I think it's just a perfect addition, and I'm excited to see what we can all do together from here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I've got a question for you. So,
Sure.
we're at the beginnings of all of this, right? We're helping restaurants understand A, what dynamic pricing is, B, how it can help them. But you've been there before. You've just talked about the other guys and the journeys that they've been on. So what was it that took hotels in the direction of dynamic pricing? Why did they get to a place where they said, "Oh, yeah, this is going to make sense for us"? And what was the initial reaction? Were the hotels you were speaking to, how did they react to this?
I mean, that's a great question, and it's something that I do talk about quite a lot to investors and to restaurant groups that are, interested in our story and why we started this business. Both Drew and I went into the hotel industry, I would say about 20 years ago, and that was right after September 11th took the industry into chaos. And it was a turbulent time when hotels were struggling with all of the new things that were happening because of the new landscape. So you had new technology players coming into the space. Back then, Expedia, back then there were 20 different ones, hotels.com, Travelocity, cheap tickets, and there were so many of them. I remember in the hotel companies where they had room full of people managing these different systems for each one of them, and they were completely overwhelmed by the rapid digitization in the industry and how to deal with all that technology. And then there was concern about third party intermediaries coming in and getting between the hotel and their own customer and then having to pay quite high commissions to those third parties. All of those things hold true today in restaurants, and COVID has created a very similar pattern over the last 2 years in restaurants. But to answer your question specifically, while hotels were struggling with all this change 20 years ago, it brought about a significant opportunity, and that was rates became online and they became more fluid. And that meant that hotels could now take more advantage of analyzing demand patterns. When a big group came into the hotel, when they had less capacity, and when they could forecast better, it gave them the opportunity to raise prices when demand was higher, but it also gave them the ability to run their hotels more efficiently. And that meant that when they could predict things were going to be slower, they could run more last minute promotions and attract more last minute business, which was good for everybody. It was good for the customer and good for the hotel. And in fact, an entire ecosystem of companies were developed to allow hotels to run those promotions and allow consumers to easily find them. And that's what we saw 20 years ago, and that is what we are seeing now in restaurants. And I do believe that from a timing perspective, this is why when we talk to restaurant groups today, the reaction is not, is dynamic pricing a good idea or is it going to happen? The reaction is generally, yes, we agree, the timing is right, this is going to happen. And so let's talk about the best way to approach it and the best time for us to get involved.
Yeah, I think both of us have been surprised in many ways just by the level of positivity towards it, right? I think many people now are used to what dynamic pricing is, whether that be booking a flight or a vacation somewhere, they're used to seeing that come through. And I think that's going to help us, at least on our journey, as we help the industry get more to grips with exactly how this is going to come to life. Obviously, we're partnering up with what we're calling co-developers or pioneer partners right now, helping them really see the opportunity of dynamic pricing, working with them over the course of these next few months to demonstrate the uplift opportunity, but also the learning journey that we are mutually going through together as we try to develop this product. One of the things I'm really excited about, Ashwin, is the blog, if you will, that we're going to be creating, not only just talking about dynamic pricing, but something you've been doing, walking across the streets of Rome, telling people about where you live over in Italy there, about what it's like to develop a business. You've been there before, you've gone through the entire journey yourself. And personally, one of the things I'm excited about is not just working with you guys, helping restaurants through dynamic pricing, is going through this journey myself, being an early stage startup and seeing the trials and tribulations, hopefully the more happier days and sad days, and telling people more about this story of what it's like. Help people understand why this is important to you and why we're going to be doing it.
Wow, there's a lot there. As you said, I did build a previous business. That business, though, was organically grown and self-funded. And that limited us in many ways. And there were things that we did right and a lot of things we did wrong. We learned a lot of lessons from that. So there are a lot of good things from that experience that I'm hoping to bring here to Juicer. And look, when I started my first business, I had no idea what I was doing. And I wish that I had more transparency from other companies to learn from so that I could have prevented some of the mistakes that I made. So I think when we started this business, I discussed this with Drew early on. And of course, you and I have talked about this approach about the ultra transparency that we want to have running this business. That really worked for us at Regatta Travel Solutions, both internally with our teams. I think that created a sense of trust with the team, but also with customers and partners. They knew who we were, they knew what we stood for, they knew what was going on with us, and there was just, no reason to doubt. So that's really why I would like to take that approach here as well. So that's something that's very important to us culturally.
Well, you'll be hearing obviously from our other co-founders as well on that journey. So we're looking forward to bringing that together. But for now, subscribe to the link below so that you can hear from us both in terms of videos and also the written blogs that we'll be doing. But we look forward to taking you on that journey with us. So thanks again for having me, Ashwin. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Carl.